Welcome back everyone to NYC. My name is Casey and I'll be talking about platonic relationships with the opposite sex. This is my first time doing a solo podcast, so this is going to be very interesting for me to be talking about. So I've had a lot of relationships and platonic relationships with the opposite sex. For reference, I am a female, and most of my people I'm referring to are males, and having relationships romantically and platonically can impact people as they're growing up, especially when there's different cultures involved and how they would approach relationships as well. For me, it would just like any other relationship, it's just setting boundaries, communicating, and having consent and whatnot. So that could be like, hey, are we friends or are we more? And going from there and figuring out what is the relationship like. Are you guys comfortable as it is or anything else like that? This podcast is going to be very much done no script whatsoever, so this is going to be very interesting for me. And the fact that I've had a lot of platonic relationships, and my best friend at the moment is a guy, and we're both in serious relationships, but at the same time, people still think that we're dating, even though we are very, very platonic. It's like a sibling-like relationship. He's never had a sister. I never had a brother, and it makes sense. There are obviously times where it does get really awkward for one or the other, when people say like, hey, are you guys dating? No, we're just really good friends, and it's nothing more to that. And I would, communicate like, hey, if you have anything to say to me, please let me know, so at least we can handle this situation as soon as possible and take the necessary like steps and whatnot to make sure like we can continue being friends without whatever else is causing this disruption or this conflict, you could say. And being friends of the opposite sex, it can be disturbing. No, it can be very frustrating at times, because you kind of have to you could say you're pushing the social boundaries, the quote unquote social boundaries of being friends with people of the opposite sex. And it also doesn't help when there's a lot of cultural and religious aspects involving people even being friends with the opposite sex. For me, I'm Filipino. But I'm born and raised in Australia, and thankfully my mom never forced her opinions and overviews about me having friendships with the guys that are around me, around school and whatnot. But everyone else seems like they had an opinion that they needed to share, and that obviously caused some conflict, some distance between me and that person. And sometimes it does happen or doesn't happen where one or the other confesses. And when that happens, obviously when you're young, in love, still exploring the world, trying to figure out where your place in the world is, it can be very world shattering at times, depending on how strong the emotions were and how strong this relationship between you and that person is. There are times where It's an interesting it's an interesting thing because like platonic relationship with the same sex, if you can befriend people of that same sex or people that have similar identities to you, then you can there's already like a level of like relatability to each other because you're both living through the same experiences. If I spoke to another girl about the hardships of being a woman and our safety is always this and that and all these other conversations, we can easily befriend each other because we have a mutual understanding and respect and an opinion of a certain topic and whatnot. If I were to do that for a guy, then that would be, it depends. Are they willing to understand and listen to how we live our lives, or are they going to be more defensive and probably have inappropriate comments about whatever they want to say?